It's part of what makes us human. So the ability to feel badly about bad things, to experience sadness when there are things to be sad about.
What does that say about us when we don't feel sorrow over bad things that have happened to us?
We tend to be a bit elevated to achieve the next thing, to be on guard against the next threat. And all of that elevation then keeps us out of just resting in the good, or even resting in the bad, in the sense of being able to be present and sorrowful over things that are not good. We need the emotional affirmation of the gift of those emotions and our own heart's responses. We need someone to be in relationship with who experiences us as a gift and helps us to feel that through their response to us.
Hey everybody, before we get into today's interview, I want to tell you about my brand new book. It's called Jesus, Our Refuge. If you, like many people, and like all of us to one degree or another, have been seeking refuge in things other than Jesus Christ and have just found yourself increasingly weary, then this book is for you. This book is about taking Jesus seriously when he says, "Come to me, you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." It's getting great reviews, and I know it will be a healing balm to your soul. Check it out, Jesus, Our Refuge. You can get it right now on Amazon. Thanks. Father Boniface, thank you very much for being on the show. It's great to have you in the new studio. We have decided that we will look at Thomas Aquinas' 5 remedies for sadness or sorrow, because there is so much in here. And we also live in a really anxious age. I keep hearing statistics about young people not wanting to live, having no hope for the future. Seems like suicide is on the rise. Breakdown of families is something that always gets repeated, but it's no less tragic because of that. And so I hope that this, I know it will be a balm, a healing balm for those who are currently just going through a lot, whether it's financial or health struggles or mental illness, depression, or what have you. So I thought you would be a beautiful person to talk about this.
Well, I'm delighted at the opportunity. I didn't have the list of St. Thomas's teaching on those things, but certainly in the world of spiritual direction, where I'm also always incorporating psychology, interpersonal neurobiology, there's so many fun things that are coming to the forefront from various angles in the world today. And I'm delighted to discover that St. Thomas was aware of these things, 1,000 years ago. It's great.
Now, we don't have this in front of us, but Aquinas does differentiate between different types of sorrow, like torpor and anxiety, etc. But I'd love your take on this. How in your work, I think you told me you have over 100 spiritual children or thereabouts, you're encountering different types of sorrow. How would you distinguish the different types of sorrow as you encounter it? Or is that not even the right way to ask the question?
It's fine. I haven't really thought to categorize them. I did read St. Thomas's breakdown of a couple different kinds of sorrow. Sorrow in general is a response to things that are bad. So things that are not as they should be, a deprivation of the good. And that sorrow, that pain of heart that we experience when we've been hurt by somebody, when we're struggling and failing, when our health is affected, when there's some significant loss, when we feel overwhelmed by the threats in the world, when there is an evil present that we can't overcome, then we experience sorrow. And that's the appropriate human emotional response. And that's been one of the things that has been most important for me to be able to speak clearly about and to have a lot of compassion for, and the people that I work with, is sometimes we can be shamed about sorrow. Any of the negative emotions, fear, anger, sorrow, aversion, and dislike, that we can be shamed about that. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Christians should be joyful. You're not allowed to. You have these kinds of problems. Just get over it. Anxiety is from the enemy. Just stop it. Pray more. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff out there that can make people feel like there's something wrong with them because they feel badly. But when there are things that are wrong, there's a reason to feel badly. And the starting point is is to understand what's there, what's happening in me, what do I feel badly about, what's this sorrow coming from? And the capacity for sorrow, I've learned so much from Conrad Bars, who is you could say the father of Catholic psychotherapy. He took St. Thomas Aquinas' anthropology and used that as the lens to sort of refactor psychology, which at his time was really only Freudian psychology, and envisioned it through St. Thomas's fuller picture of the human person. And he renamed the concupiscible appetites as the humane emotions. It's part of what makes us human. So the ability to feel badly about bad things, to experience sadness when there are things to be sad about, which goes hand in hand with the opposite, to feel joyful about good things, to have desire and love for good things. All of this is an embodied way of responding to the world at the level of natural goods to moral goods and supernatural goods, that I could actually have a response of joy in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament is an elevated form of humanity. And if I don't leave room for sorrow and joy, then I don't leave room for if I don't leave room for sorrow, I don't leave room for joy either. And for various reasons, and we'll get into some of the remedies and the reasons in our conversation, but we can end up suppressing those emotions under what St. Thomas calls the irascible appetites, what Conrad Bars calls the energy or the assertive emotions, which are things like hope and courage, but also anger and fear, and then despair is its own interesting energy emotion. But we can end up achieving, striving, running. There's ways that anger and fear and even hope and courage can push down sorrow and joy, so that we don't actually enjoy the present moment, so that we don't savor what's happening in front of us and what's going on in us now. And
that's certainly been true in my own life. There are times where I think, why can't I enjoy this? You know, maybe 5 years ago, if this had have happened to me, I would have been elated. But now I can't seem to pluck up the joy. So I guess my question is, what does that say about us when we don't feel sorrow over bad things that have happened to us, or joy over good things we're experiencing?
Well, I think we're often living in a little bit of threat mode in that case. So our nervous system is activated, and we're in those energy emotions a bit more. And so what, modern neuroscience is identified as threat response, fight or flight. We tend to be a bit elevated to achieve the next thing, to be on guard against the next threat. And all of that elevation then keeps us out of just resting in the good, or even resting in the bad, in the sense of being able to be present and sorrowful over things that are not good. A lot of times what we need to help us, and this was another insight of Conrad Bars, was we need the emotional affirmation of the gift of those emotions and our own heart's responses. We need someone to be in relationship with who experiences us as a gift and helps us to feel that through their response to us. It's related to one of St. Thomas's remedies for sorrow, and the sympathy of a person who loves us. And so that gives me permission when, and I just had the blessing of experiencing you with your family, your children, and you can rejoice when your son discovers something, or does a magic trick, or finds a lizard. We were doing a little tour of the shrine of Our Lady of La Leche, and he had a lizard hanging from his ear, and he could enjoy this, and we enjoyed it with him, and it reinforced this is a joyful thing. But we often require that reinforcement relationally. That's part of what forms neuro pathways from the scientific perspective. That's the thing that develops our appetites from the philosophical perspective.
What you said earlier was interesting, that we often get shamed for feeling negative emotions. And I would imagine that part of the reason for that is, if you're feeling sad, you're less of a joy to me. So come on, suck it up. Just get over it. Like be joyful again so that I can have more pleasure. I don't think we often think it through like that, but wouldn't you say?
Yeah, our unwillingness to enter into someone else's suffering is is understandable from a couple of perspectives. Not, you just casted it a little bit in a selfish perspective. I don't want. Sometimes I can't, or that's its own kind of threat for me. There's so much sensitivity around the loss of a loved one in me, for example, that when you're missing someone, you've lost a loved one, I'm resistant to going there without even thinking about it. It's a visceral reaction to what you're going through. I distance myself. Ooh. So that's why, we've got to do our own work to help other people do their work. The most limiting factor in psychology is the psychologist not being able to go to a place. And likewise in friendship, our capacity to help others is going to be limited by our own woundedness or our own lack of inner healing, freedom.
People are talking a lot more about anxiety today. I don't know if they still are, but I kept hearing that. Where is that coming from, and what is it?
We use that word in such a variety of ways. That has a clinical psychological meaning. I'm not sure it's exactly the same as St. Thomas's meaning.
Yeah, sure. And not to cut you off, but maybe 100 years ago, people were using the word nerves, like her nerves are shot. So perhaps we're referring to the same phenomena over time. It's just that when a new word occurs to sort of identify the thing, perhaps we think it's a new phenomena. I don't know if it is or it isn't.
Yeah, I guess I'm inclined to recognize the real deficiency in our modern times as a lack of affirmation in Bars's sense, a lack of committed relationships, of love, in another way of saying it. And part of anxiety can be, in some sense, the uncertainty of whether I'm good. To not have the ground, the emotional ground, to stand in confidence and know that my life is a gift. And then I'm anxious about proving it, earning it, what people are thinking about it. And those things go, again, sort of into our nervous system. They would be in the level of the cognitive function in St. Thomas's terms. It's not a rational idea that I've come up with and I can therefore correct by getting my ideas straight. It's something that I have to receive into my bones, into my nervous system, into my flesh from another. We receive this gift from another. We're meant to be in relationship and meant to receive love. And, in some sense, we only see our face in the face of another. I'm receiving myself from you right now. Your nods and your eye contact, your attention is telling me that I'm worth listening to, and that I have something meaningful to say, and that you're taking it in. And all of that is reinforcing what's happening in me. I can't do that in a mirror. I can't do that in an abstract way. We receive that through relationships. And I think that's the big breakdown in our world today, is we have steadily moved to more and more separation in relationships. What I've experienced in your family over the weekend has been such a joy, because you really love each other, you're present to each other, you care about each other, you affirm each other's existence and goodness, and it's just tangible. And I think it's more and more rare. I think the breakdowns in the family, and it's a cascading problem, because you can't give what you don't have. And obviously we heal through relationships, and I'm sure in some way your family is an improvement. You've tried to take the next generation in a better place, but you've received a lot from other people who have received you and loved you and filled in some of the holes that perhaps your parents left. But our society is spinning apart at the seams, and that leaves people with a deep malaise of like, am I good? Is my life worthwhile? Does it matter if I show up? Do I have anything to offer?
Wow.
I think that leads to a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone could disagree with that, because I think we would all acknowledge that if a child after birth is completely neglected, maybe it's fed by a machine or something like that, and a human being comes and looks at it every so often, but it's sort of raised by computers and machines, that person is going to be really deficient. And yet if we've received, if there's been a poverty in our relationships with our caregivers, I mean, anyone who's been adopted, they talk about this, right? As great as their adoptive parents are, there's this hole there. with this desire for something, their birth parents, that relationship. So the idea that if you've had a negative experience with your family, or they weren't able to provide what they should have provided for you when you were young, that would have no ill effect on you in a way that, as you say, gets into your nervous system, seems like a strange thing to posit.
Yeah, so some of the scientific ways of expressing this, so the realm of interpersonal neurobiology is recognizing that even our neural pathways are formed in relationship. A really simple example of this is probably before the end of our interview, your stomach is going to start rumbling. And you will immediately know that the remedy for that is putting something in your mouth. That doesn't make logical sense. Why would we ever connect our mouth with our stomach?
Right.
Your mother taught you that. Your stomach rumbled, you cried, she fed you, you felt satisfaction, and a neural pathway formed. So that's a very simple physical example, but then you take that to the emotional example. When I feel ill at ease out in a crowded, noisy, chaotic street, I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if I'm safe. I don't know if I'll get out of it. Having a parent there who says, it's going to be okay. I feel the connection of that relationship, and I start to feel the confidence. I develop the resilience that I need to handle chaotic and difficult situations. But we literally, God has given us the capacity for all of this, but it only forms in relationship.
I'll give you an example of this after the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. May God rest his soul. One of my children was distraught because I run in similar circles, to her, to this child's mind, And so they called me crying, and I was like, "Hey, it's okay, And they said, that could happen to you, and it won't happen to me. And they said, "Do you promise?" Oh, that's a hard question to answer. So I said yes. I thought that was the right response, even though I can't promise a thing like that. Yes, I promise that won't happen to me. But whether I should or shouldn't have said that, the point is that's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it? Like, I'm in this place of distress and I need a parent to come in and to soothe me and to reaffirm truth.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And that's so sweet that your children know that they can just ask you that. So that's another place where having fear could be shamed. And if you had insecurity around that, you could have shamed that in response, and that would form a different neural pathway. I can't ask Dad about these things.
Oh my goodness, I didn't think of that. Yeah, if I had said something like, "Why are you being so emotional right now?" You're crazy if you think that I would get hurt the way Charlie did. Do you even know how big? He's much bigger than me. He was much more, nothing like that at all. You need to calm down. Oh, how brutal would that have been?
Yeah.
But I'm sure all of us can maybe resonate with an experience like that we've had.
And have made the mistake of offering. Again, that comes many times out of our own insecurity. If you had been really afraid of that, and you were in some sense trying to reassure yourself at the same time, you may have shut down the question rather than being able to enter into it as you were able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God forgive me for all the ways that I've done it without knowing it, eh? God make up for the ways I lack. All right, well, let's look at the first one. I love what Aquinas says about this. He says the first thing, you're sorrowful, here's what you should do. And it sounds so obvious that, like, why even put this in the list? Is it just because you wanted to get to 5? But the first thing he says is do something pleasurable. And he's got this great line in the Summa where he says, and maybe you have it in front of you, but it's something to the effect of, what sleep is to a weary body, pleasure is to a weary soul or to sadness. You're tired, you find an end in rest, which rejuvenates you. You're sad, what do? You have to experience some legitimate pleasure that you can then rest in to rejuvenate you.
Yeah, there's so many interesting layers to that because, of course, sleep matches directly to weariness, whereas pleasure, like a Reese's peanut butter cup, doesn't match exactly to the loss of my mother. And he goes through some of those distinctions as well, that the species of the pleasure and the species of the sorrow may not be the same. And so even the effect may not be, sort of one-to-one. And even though the pleasure may sort of cause the sorrow to recede for a time, the sorrow may reemerge as the pleasure dissipates. So just to set up that structure, at the same time, I think it's very consoling for anybody who has ever had comfort food, has tried to ease their pain by having a bowl of ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. St. Thomas recognized.
Yeah. Come on. You're in the airport. There's that low-level anxiety that everybody feels at the airport. And you see, I've never had this. I've never seen the drawer of this, but Cinnabon or Chick-fil-A, which I definitely see the appeal of. And you just think, oh, I just want to inhale a number 3 meal and everything will be okay. And sometimes it is.
Well, the pleasure causes the sorrow to recede. So the problem is the pleasure also recedes and the sorrow reemerges, depending on what it is. It might help us wait out the space in the airport.
Right.
And that can be fine. Although the reason we're anxious in the airport may be a more deeply seated reason of our uncertainty about life and feeling sort of threatened in the world in general. And but certain kinds of pleasure can cause some of those points of sorrow to recede. And that can be very helpful. It's like if we can give ourselves a little bit of breathing room. This is one of the places where I have certainly encouraged or supported the use of medication with direct ease, that sometimes when there can be a real negative feedback loop that someone is going through something, like if my anxiety causes me anxiety, if my pain causes me pain, and that it's like, how do you ever get out of it? I can't, and that has a way of overtaking our minds. We don't see clearly, we can't process well, and then it's like, how do you ever get some breathing room to take a positive step, to change something in your life, to address a problem? It's so heavy. And so sometimes, medication, sometimes a certain kind of pleasure to get your mind off of it can give you a little bit of breathing room to address what the cause of the sorrow is.
I love that. Let's talk about the difference between leisure and dissociation, because there are activities which give us a form of pleasure but don't restore us. They drain us. It might be okay occasionally to come home from a hard day at work, grab a beer, and just kind of zone out to TV. I don't know, maybe that's appropriate sometimes. You tell me. But we all know the experience of doom scrolling or engaging in 3 different activities, all of which should be restful, but we find ourselves interiorly fragmented. And when it's all said and done, we feel just weary and wrecked. I have that experience. Well, I have the opposite experience. I have the recreation experience when I, let's say, which I hope to do this weekend, leave my phone and computer here at the studio, go home and have a weekend without anything vying for my attention. I find that that's the best way for me just to restore. So when Aquinas says pleasure, how do we distinguish between dissociative activities and recreational activities?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different distinctions that need to be made. Again, I'm talking about eating food as a way of at least settling sorrow and disconnecting in certain ways. I mean, presumably we're watching entertainment because we enjoy it. It is a form of pleasure.
It can be. Sometimes.
It can be.
I remember once my wife nearly died. She was in the hospital years ago. She was in the ICU. She was in the hospital for a month, and I'm with my kids. And I remember once I opened up my laptop lid, opened up Netflix, and I think I spent 45 minutes just scrolling through the options and then shut it and went to bed. And that was not enjoyable. And even if I had to watch something, it wouldn't have been enjoyable. Do you know that experience? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that kind of numbing, you use the word dissociation, which is really separating it. Well, it's a form of numbing. It's not feeling anything. It's finding some way to occupy so that I don't feel the sorrow. The sorrow feels too heavy. I don't know how to go there. And maybe I can't go there in the sense that we can have sorrow that's overwhelming. And that's, again, the importance of relationships. We'll get down to that at number 3, but it is I found it's the most essential remedy in the sense that having someone to hold pain with me is a way of reducing the pain enough to really look at it. And I think, it's so beautiful. We celebrate September 14th and 15th, the triumph of the cross and the sorrowful Virgin, Our Lady's position at the foot of the cross, being able to carry and hold the pain and communicate love is something so essential. I mean, it's just at the heart of our salvation. Jesus suffering for us, but Mary also fully receiving that and entering into it. So anyway, all of that is to say, sometimes we numb or dissociate. Again, I want to remove shame from that.
Okay.
If you've done some doom scrolling or you've tried to disconnect in different ways, if you have a hard time looking at what's causing the pain, sometimes that's the best that we can do until I think, being able to bring someone else into it over time to be able to look at things is necessary.
Okay, well, that's good, but let's get practical though. Someone right now is watching this and like, okay, pleasure, that's way too broad. You've talked about getting your head above water by engaging in what we might call trivial pleasures that are certainly a relief. But practically speaking, what is he talking about?
Well, I think to actually remedy the sorrow.
He doesn't mean pornography. He doesn't mean get drunk.
Right. That's doing pursuing another evil.
But these things could be clearly pleasurable. That's why we do it. So why not those things?
Well, and fair enough. Do they cause? So he's talking about what causes the sorrow to be reduced. He's not necessarily prescribing patterns of healthy behavior in life in general. He's acknowledging the impact of different passions on other passions. So will using pornography cause your sorrow to be reduced? Well, yeah, actually, for the period of time that you're engaging in that pleasure. Is it going to make it worse for countless reasons, not least of which it's terribly sinful? Well, yes. But again, I think there might be a little bit of a consolation for somebody who finds themselves trapped in that loop. What are you actually doing? Well, you're trying to self-medicate. We use that term. You're trying to apply a certain pleasure to overcome a certain sorrow. I have a lot of compassion for that. The genre, I suppose, of engaging in pleasure to overcome sorrow involves, a whole variety of activities. What's going to be the long-term positive impact from something? So I'm not suggesting we have ice cream to constantly eat down our pleasure either. And certainly, again, ice cream is not sinful. Engaging in sinful behaviors is going to increase the sorrow eventually. But temporarily, it's going to reduce it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but do you find that people know what brings them pleasure? If you were chatting with someone who was kind of sad and you were trying to give this practical application to their life, what would you say? What makes you come alive? What gives you relief? How would you go about helping someone decide what pleasure to try to engage in?
Yeah, those are great questions. And they can be hard questions to engage when someone is sad. The best thing is to take a little inventory when we're at our best and we can see most clearly. Yeah. And then know what are some of the healthy activities, going for a walk, exercising, having, we'll get to that, a good conversation with a friend, engaging in, an activity that we produce something or achieve something. Maybe that's a hobby or even getting some work done, completing some emails. There are a number of things that we can find some satisfaction in, and that can lift our mood a bit.
Can I ask you, what is the least impressive thing you do for pleasure? Maybe not the least, but you're not allowed to say read Plato or something. It has to be... What do you enjoy doing that's not impressive? I
enjoy eating. I enjoy a good snack. I enjoy a cup of coffee. I enjoy a martini.
Yeah.
I can enjoy a TV show or a movie. Those are things that, all things being equal, I'd probably want to wean myself off of between now and eternity. But anyway, those are a few of the...
I like reading, lately I like reading I got into fiction through Dostoevsky. Isn't that ridiculous? I never read a book growing up. I think I read a Choose Your Own Adventure book once, but I somehow managed to get through high school without reading a book. Why would I? You know, it's like, why would you eat health food when your mum and dad leave Coca-Cola in the fridge? And, you know, you're like, why would I even eat that apple? It's disgusting.
Right.
So I never read anything. So I first got into Dostoevsky because I wanted to be the kind of guy who would read Dostoevsky. Yeah, it's really hard to go from Dostoevsky to anybody else. You know, I tried reading Michael O'Brien. I'm like, what is this? Even though it's excellent, you know. But lately, I've really been enjoying reading some, you know, not terribly sophisticated mystery novels and things like that. And that's something I enjoy doing. I might go home, leave the computer and phone at the house, and I'll just say, I'm going to just spend this weekend and I'm trying to get through 5 chapters, you know, and I'll go on a walk with the wife and I'll go to the beach with my boy or something like that, you know. I enjoy those things.
I've been talking a lot lately about my friends at the College of St. Joseph the Worker, you know, Jacob Imam, Mike Sullivan, Andrew Jones and company, the guys who started the college that combines the Catholic intellectual tradition with skilled trades training. Well, listen to this. They're growing their program and are looking to connect with experienced Catholic tradesmen to hire as instructors. So if you are an experienced carpenter, plumber, HVAC technician, or electrician and want to help mentor and teach future Catholic tradesmen, go right now to collegeofstjoseph.com/careers to connect with the college and see how you can become part of something truly special. And if you're watching or listening and know a tradesman who needs to hear this message, please invite them to reach out to the college. Again, that's collegeofstjoseph.com/careers. collegeofstjoseph.com/careers. Thanks.
And those are, you know, again, matching the pleasure to the sorrow, and even the species of the pleasure to the sorrow. So I can't overcome the loss of the sorrow that comes from the loss of my mother by replacing her.
Yeah.
I can't ever replace her. So there are other remedies that we have to look at. But temporarily, I can try to do something enjoyable. You know, go to a baseball game or read a novel. Spend some time with, you know, the family, with my brother monks. You know, so we can find, and the greater the pleasure is going to be somewhat of a remedy for the greater sorrows. And then we want pleasures that don't create more sorrow, but pleasures that create more pleasure in the sense that they keep building up the good.
I definitely have a lot I want to say, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The second one is just wild, right? Right after you talk about pleasure, and you think, okay, I can do that. Great. What's your second thing? He's like, cry. And what I love about it is he doesn't just say cry, he says tears and groaning. So like a good cry, like an embarrassing cry.
Ugly cry.
The end of Titanic cry. That's what you are, I don't know. But why? Why is tears? How does that relieve pain? And what if you can't do that?
Yeah, and like you said, what a beautiful contrast from the first remedy, that rather than distancing from it, which is something of what pleasure is doing, it's pushing in a different direction. It's removing myself from the cause of sorrow. Tears is like pressing into it, going into the sorrow and feeling it, really letting ourselves feel it. And then tears are the expression of that. So he gives 2 reasons that, and you may have to help me with this, but or we can look at the text. But the tears, when I express something that is actually happening in me, that action corresponds with that reality.
Something like an action which befits a man's actual state is always pleasant to him, which is just terrific.
Yeah.
Like as an introvert, you take me to a party with my wife and there's a lot of things going on. It's very unpleasant, although I think required. I think friendliness requires it, which is a virtue that he talks about, to put on, hey, yeah, it's great to see you. Hi, yeah. You know, for me, when I go into an elevator and there's like another fella there and I got to go up 23 flights of, oh, how you going? Yeah. Oh, I hate it. But I'm pretty sure my wife has never found that weird. She usually walks out of an elevator with a best friend somehow. Like, meanwhile, I'm like, I hate everything.
Strange creature.
Everything about this. Yeah. But that's good. You know, if you're happy, I suppose it would be a cause of sadness if you had to suppress that for the sake of people, perhaps people mourning, although you might be led into their mourning and feel that. But then, yeah, vice versa. If you feel sad and you got to put on a happy face, that's not pleasant. I love the second reason he gives, though, because it's something that all of our mothers said to us when we were 4. Like my mum, just let it out, like that's basically what he says, hey?
Right.
Something like he says, and it really is like verbatim. It feels like something your mother said. He says, when a thing is, what does he say? You say it.
A hurtful thing hurts yet more if we keep it shut up.
Come on.
Because the soul is more intent on it. Whereas if it be allowed to escape, the soul's intention is dispersed, as it were, on outward things, so that the inward sorrow is lessened. So to let it out, let it escape. Not try to hold it in which case the intention, the focus on it actually intensifies it, but simply to express it and release it. And tears are the way that we release sorrow. So we honor Our Lady's tears. The Chaplet of the Sorrowful Virgin includes 3 Hail Marys to honor her 72 tears or something like that.
Wow.
Anyway,
beautiful.
We honor tears, and tears should be reverenced and reinforced and encouraged.
Yeah.
It's so helpful.
I immediately thought of that scene from Dumb and Dumber. Do you ever watch Dumb and Dumber? I forget the names, but Jim Carrey's character breaks down on the other character. He's like, yeah, it's okay. Let it out. And then it got too much. He's like, okay, when I say let it out. I'm sure you've encountered this in your years of being a spiritual father. People not being able to cry.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to cry, but I feel so disconnected from myself. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's been a journey for me. Entering Christianity was also the beginning of the healing of my own tears. So an earlier experience in life, which I've spent a lot of time unpacking in subsequent years, put me in a position of feeling like men don't cry, essentially. That sounds cliche, but that was communicated to me in a way that I needed to control and suppress my more intense and thus feeling like they were childlike emotions, especially in the world of men. My mother always received my tears, and I felt more comfortable crying around women than around men.
Yep.
But recovering that, being able to respond appropriately to things that are sad, to experience sorrow and express it through tears is a beautiful thing. So
right, and if anyone is concerned about this, remember Christ did it, and Thomas Aquinas encourages it, and you are not better than either of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so intellectually we should be on the right page, but then deciding, we can't just sort of decide to cry. That's so we can decide sometimes to hold it back. That's tends to be a little bit more in our power, not entirely, but we can decide to some degree to cry. There's a way of leaning into it and so releasing, as St. Thomas is describing. But that's, can be a process of healing too. Sometimes what's holding it back, and that's my own story, what's holding it back is not something consciously, that I'm consciously in charge of. That's a deeper story, a deeper narrative that's kind of in my nervous system, as it were.
Do you encourage people to listen to beautiful music or to watch a sad movie? I mean, that might sound a little mechanical to put it that way, but if people are trying to connect with their emotions, is that sort of stuff helpful?
It's super helpful, yeah. Yeah, Conrad Bars in his book, Feeling and Healing Your Emotions, has some really beautiful practical invitations, but also, and feeling joy and feeling sorrow are working along the same appetite. So again, what Thomas calls the concupiscible appetite, the humane emotions. So our ability to enter into nature, to enjoy a beautiful sunset, to listen to beautiful music, also not multitasking.
Yeah.
Multitasking tends to be driven by our assertive emotions, and so it can suppress a bit more our humane emotions, but just being able to enter into one beautiful thing in front of us and really feel that. And then, a sad movie could be a way to engage some of the sorrow in our hearts and really focus in on that.
Well, I've mentioned this a bunch, but I'll keep doing it. There's a book It's a novella by Dostoevsky called A Gentle Creature. Oh, it's so good. In fact, the edition I had that image on the front cover, which is why I bought that painting. But I read this. It'd probably take you 4 or 5 hours to read, I suppose. I read this, and when I finished it, broke apart. And I was really pleased that I was alone in a cabin in the North Georgia mountains. And I just had the freedom to just, it crushed me. Books do that for me for some reason. I also read that book by Cormac McCarthy, The Road. And at the end of that, the same thing happened. The Old Man and the Sea was another one where I'll just, The Lord of the Rings. When I finished The Lord of the Rings and Sam comes back home and it says, she put little Eleanor upon his, I think it was Eleanor, upon his lap. He took a breath. Well, I'm back. But there was something about the arrival and the welcoming of him. It was something like the fire was on and the evening meal was ready. And this line, he was expected, and he was expected. Dude, when I finished that book, I went through 3 layers of rooms to be alone. I went into my bedroom, went into my closet, and fell over crying. It just broke me. It was so beautiful.
Wow.
I don't know what it is
love
about
that.
books that do that, but A Gentle Creature, I would highly recommend people read that. It's just so beautiful.
Well, and I love your heart that can enter into that. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful, sensitive heart.
Sympathy of friends. You want to move there yet or no? Okay, so I want to go on a tangent here before we get to this, all right? Sympathy of friends. Before we even look at this, I want to acknowledge something that I'm seeing more and more, and that is the use of AI as a replacement for friendship, as a replacement for therapists, as a replacement for a girlfriend or boyfriend. And I'm terrified to see how things will eventuate. You know, like right now you can talk to ChatGPT and there's this kind of awkward pause before she or he responds to you. But I mean, that'll be done in like 5 days from now. It'll be perfectly fluid. And then what? Then what? You insert that into a lifelike creature, like a woman or a man that you then have a relationship with. Not super optimistic about our future, if I'm honest with you. But I know you've done some thinking on AI and how it affects our relationships. And
the church has a teaching out now, Antiqua et Nova, that came out January of 2025 that Cardinal Fernandez elaborates on a number of different dimensions, trying to distinguish human intelligence from artificial intelligence. And makes a good argument, I think, that using the word intelligence is actually misleading, that intelligence is really a full-bodied experience of our way of engaging in the world that's much more robust than the reduction to information and words that artificial intelligence is able to capture. So some of the philosophical distinctions there, which I won't be able to represent all of, but are really worth reading, I think are important for us to reflect on. But it is amazing, first of all. I mean, let me honor, as a guy with a background and a PhD in computer science, I can appreciate, as happy as I am to be out of computer science, because I love the work I do as a spiritual father, teacher, theologian, etc. At the same time, I can appreciate the incredible technology and really to glorify God and a sign of man's ingenuity to be able to put this together is remarkable. And engaging in GPT, I mean, although you said there's an awkward pause, not compared to text messaging. I mean, the kinds of texting conversations that people have, that I've had on a regular basis, even going very deep and in extended ways and communicating very deep things, can totally be mirrored by GPT.
Yeah.
And that's where the point of connection, it can seem so similar to those sorts of texting conversations, which I've wrapped humanity around, because I know in my texting conversations, there's a real human person that I know very well. I know their heart and I know where the words are coming from. But suddenly I have the same words, but not coming from a heart. I can't make that distinction in reading a text thread. I have to knowingly make that distinction.
Yeah.
And that's what the Vatican note also points out, is the danger of projecting human qualities or fleshing out the text conversation with a heart and a presence in the world and a face and a number of other things, which we tend to do spontaneously. So we really have to catch ourselves lest we really personify artificial intelligence. And that's exactly where it can be, sort of useful for therapy or useful for friendship. It responds extremely well. It can speak loving words to me. I mean, I ask these sort of complicated theological questions and it says, that's an excellent question. That's a really interesting distinction. That's a great insight. And I feel good about myself.
Yes, I've noticed that too.
It told me that, right?
Yes.
So it's very understandable that we have those kinds of reactions. And we just have to remind ourselves, at best, that's coming from a couple degrees removed, a human person who knows how to affirm or encourage, but it's not actually seeing me and knowing me and understanding me. And so the more that we're able to keep that information engagement in the realm of information and not expect something more robust and human from it is going to be really important. But as you say, I also have anxiety around how that's going to develop, how far down a path of, talk about sadness. When people engage, do they know that it's a machine at a certain point? Who's going to start offering a bot as if it were a human person? Telehealth or, some sort of therapy. And then you discover after how many months or years that this doesn't exist, that this is not a person. What kind of devastation is that as we start to build our identity around nothing ultimately? Yeah.
I would hope there's a devastation, but my fear is that people will be like, good, I'm glad it wasn't a human. Its advice was way better than a human could have given me anyway. Which I don't think anyone who's in touch with their heart would say that, but I could see people saying something like that.
Well, this is a distinction I really like to make. So I also form spiritual directors, and although I'm probably a little bit more in the realm of understanding the distinctions of AI than most of the people receiving formation from me, I like to make the contrast. What can a spiritual director do that GPT can't do? Because a lot of times people think of spiritual direction as advice, information, an idea, a plan, a strategy. And GPT can do that way better than a human being can.
Okay.
What you don't get from GPT is the affirmation of a person. I don't get eye contact that's connected to a heart. I don't have someone who can affirm the value of my being. I don't have the relational process that actually forms my nervous system by a lot of nonverbal cues and genuine love. If I'm reducing spiritual direction to information, go to GPT. But if spiritual direction is a relationship, I can't have a relationship with a computer. That I suppose I can have some kind of relationship. I can't have a human interactive relationship with a
it's
computer.
interesting you say that, because this past weekend I was buying a car and I was interacting through text message with somebody, and about halfway through I got suspicious that I wasn't interacting with somebody. And you might say, well, in the case of getting a car, it doesn't matter because what you want is efficiency and the right information for someone to get back to you immediately, or something to get back to you immediately with the answer that you want. But that's exactly right. Imagine, because I haven't looked this up, but I would suspect there's bound to be therapy AI apps, or is there? Yeah, of course there is, right? That are programmed in a certain way. And what do you think? You don't think that'll help? You don't think that, would they be help? Because I see what you mean. It's the same thing with spiritual direction. It might be able to give you good advice, but can't hold your heart, as it were. You can't sit before someone. But I don't know. I mean, there's probably therapies where you're just texting back and forth. I don't know. But you're saying just knowing that you're talking to a computer versus a person is a big difference.
Yeah, having a real relationship with a person makes a difference. So it's like, if you reduced a medical doctor to a machine, we've discovered the healing power in human presence, in human touch, in human eye contact.
Wow.
We've discovered the healing power in a relationship. When somebody cares that you're going to make it, it helps you to make it. The computer doesn't ever care that you're going to make it.
Wow.
So is there a great combination? Absolutely. I think a medical doctor who is enhanced by AI, if you can say it that way, great. But there are things that we get from personal contact that the person doesn't necessarily know how to provide, or information that they can't put into words. But also just having somebody who loves me and cares that I'm going to make it. I think it also exposes, so the car example, or, we have some of these online agents that can answer questions and engage our inquiries, how much we've reduced certain roles to just transactional. And
I mean, this is true even you go to the airport and then you go to buy something, and now most of them have self-service,
That's right.
And don't offer that to me, because I will take it, and I shouldn't, but I will.
Right.
And then the person in the store just becomes an annoyance. Like that's what you've reduced her help to, or his help to. They're now just an annoyance, like standing there, kind of looking over your shoulder. Do you need help? No, just leave me alone. I don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You come to kind of resent human interaction because it just gets in the way, whereas the way people were training me when I worked at a grocery store back in 1995 or something was very different.
Yeah.
People would line up after my conversion, I was so happy. People would line up at my checkout when there were other checkouts available, because they would tell my mum, he just makes my day, and I love to go through his checkout.
So beautiful.
But now, we're kind of irritated. Like I'm saying, if we're a shop owner, we're irritated that they even need a human person, Like, can't you just check and see if we have that thing on the app? Can't you just go through self-checkout, right? So we're irritated at them, and then because our skills at interacting with them as someone who works at a shop and should try to make their experience pleasant in a human way, we become an annoyance to the shopper. So the whole thing is just humans are annoying. What do you think?
Yeah, well, to harken back to the beginning of our conversation, what's happening in society today? Fractioning of relationships, disconnection from other human beings. What's the result of that? Anxiety and sorrow, as we become more isolated and more wounded. Modern psychology and neuroscience has discovered that trauma responses, so embedding responses of activation like fight, flight, freeze, fawn in our nervous system happens not only because of the intensity. We think of this as like Vietnam War vets and survivors of abuse, and certainly those are extreme situations. But the thing, because there are people that are war vets or survivors of abuse who don't have the same trauma responses. And it seems that the common denominator is being able to share this with someone. Being alone in the pain is what causes the wound to embed itself, because we start to tell ourselves stories and we start to react internally. And if we don't have someone to hold the pain and help us to process it and understand it, then we develop deeper trauma responses, which of course isolate us more. So to come back to the most basic kinds of things which could be healing relationships. I mean, think of the ideal local general store on the corner of your neighborhood, and the owner is a friend of your family, and his kids grow up with your kids, and he watches after them, and you have a real relationship with him. And when he has a product, he wants the best thing for you. And those kinds of ideals are being replaced by just transactional modes of material exchange, where, as you say, human beings become an annoyance, and we want less and less to do with them, isolating ourselves more and more, exposing ourselves to deeper and deeper anxiety and sorrow.
Wow, yeah. I don't know if you've heard of the phenomena of hikikomori in Japan. There are these individuals who lock themselves intentionally up in their room and never see anybody for 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. They get everything they need online. It was this wild thing that, I don't know, hit the news maybe 15, 20 years ago. Very different to the life of a monk, we should probably point out. But how many of us, that's the goal? Uber Eats from the house. And like, it's a part of me that's like, that actually sounds great. I actually don't really want to have to be interacting with you, especially when the customer service obviously plummets the less we concern ourselves with real human beings. So you're justified in being disappointed with the human beings at the store that you're going to, because it's a disappointing experience. And that just seems to be everywhere now.
Yeah, I remember when I first encountered John Paul II's teaching in Love and Responsibility and the personalistic norm, that a person can never be used as a means to an end. So he contrasts loving and using being basically the ground of all sin. And I thought, how do you not use the checkout person at McDonald's? Isn't that using? And for it not to be using, we have to be collaborating in a common endeavor. Like, how often do I think about that? And so I think there's been just a latent failure to acknowledge humanity that's steadily grown as our society has become more transactional. So it's become quite natural to replace human beings that I never felt that I was interacting with and basically was using to my own shame with computers, and that I don't have to work with them at all. And again, what a difference when and this doesn't have to only be the shop owner who's the friend of the family. It could be the checkout person, that I actually treat this person as a human being, that I recognize we have a common endeavor. I'm looking for food, he's making money, I want his good, he wants my good, we're working together to achieve those goods. What a different perspective that actually forms a bond.
I've tried doing that sometimes. I'll go into a coffee shop or something like that, and I'll go, I am going to... and you could overdo that and be creepy objectively. Hello. I get that. But no, I think even the times where I've really tried to just in a very casual, like, how you doing? Like, how's your morning been? The person sometimes either doesn't react to that, doesn't know how to react to that, or it is seen as kind of like, what do you want from me? Ooh, isn't that interesting? When people are genuinely nice to us, that sometimes our reaction is, what transaction are you trying to make from me?
Right. Yeah, we're guarded against being used, that even expressions of kindness trigger a fear of manipulation.
Yeah.
I think I so seldom do any shopping at all. I'm speaking in lots of abstractions, but I think Chick-fil-A actually fosters this kind of
They seem to.
friendliness, and it's a real principle that they operate on.
I don't know how they do it, but they seem to be crushing it.
It's if you make that a goal that you evaluate people on, if that's actually a priority, we can do that better. Now that can be faked, as you're saying, and we can become resistant to the fake expression of it. But
as someone it's one thing if you're the customer and you're being nice. I could see someone being like, what do you want from me? I'm okay with people faking it. I really am. I mean, they're kind of, in a way, you stoop to conquer. So if you just have to fake it, like that's the bare minimum you can do at this job that you're getting paid for. But obviously that's not preferable. Where do you see this AI thing going? That's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah,
it feels like more of a revolution than the internet. I know it's part of the internet.
I think so, yeah.
But when the internet kind of came out of the gate, we're like, whoa, what is this thing? And then chat rooms, and then...
Yeah, so you can... there's a book I read some years ago that was called The Rise of the Robots. Martin Ford, anyway, who was anticipating all of the jobs that could be replaced by technology within the next 20 or 25 years. So one of the positive twists could be, well, is working at a McDonald's checkout counter really worthy of the dignity of the human being? And could that human being do something more fruitful, creative, beautiful, expressive? Could the introduction of more automation lead to greater leisure, and so a kind of springtime of intellectual pursuits and creative developments?
And there's no way that's going to happen. Right? No way.
Well, I don't know. Why not? I mean,
because we're all idiots and wish to be. Yeah, I mean, that's like, I hope you're right, but it's sort of like saying how time-saving devices, will that lead to this? Clearly it hasn't. We have so much time throughout the day now, but we just binge and doom scroll. I want to tell you about Hallow, which is the #1 downloaded prayer app in the world. It's outstanding. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. Sign up over there right now and you will get the first 3 months for free. That's like a lot of time. You can decide whether it's useful to you or not, whether it's helpful. If you don't like it, you can always quit. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. I use it. My family uses it. It's fantastic. There are over 10,000 audio guided prayers, meditations, and music, including my lo-fi. Hallow has been downloaded over 15 million times in 150 different countries. It helps you pray, helps you meditate, helps you sleep better. It helps you build a daily routine and a habit of prayer. There's honestly so much excellent stuff on this app that it's difficult to get through it all. Just go check it out. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. The link is in the description below. It even has an entire section for kids. So if you're a parent, you could play little Bible stories to them at night. It'll help them pray. Fantastic. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd.
Is that something that can be preached? Is that a transformation that we can facilitate? Is that a cultural change that we can develop? Does that, it's you could take the cynical approach and say, well, when you remove the blue laws, yeah, everybody stopped going to church, and now it's just done.
What's blue laws?
Oh, sorry. I think they were especially in the South. Like no stores could be open on Sunday. And so as we allowed the relaxation of certain limitations, then people just, anyway, we also removed a lot of the shame. A lot of things happened that people felt free not to go to church on Sunday.
Okay.
And now people are not in church on Sunday. And so is that just a failure? Or is that a sign that they didn't know why they were in church to begin with, and it's upping the ante for evangelization?
Okay.
So do we need to work harder to convince people that authentic leisure, intellectual pursuits, creative developments, spending time with each other, building relationships, that these are actually the things that express the dignity of the human person? Does it put the burden on the influencers to influence in these positive directions, and then leaves people more free to choose?
Wow.
I mean, I'm giving you the most optimistic.
I think what's difficult about this is influencers are financially incentivized to get you to keep engaging with them in this somewhat superficial context of watching you or buying from you. So I think we take the easiest route unless we want to be virtuous. I think even today, right, you are seeing something like an awakening among people who are going, I can't be attached to my smartphone, so I need to choose to live differently. Or I've been abusing alcohol my whole life and I need it to get by, so I'm gonna get off it, and I'm not gonna eat junk food anymore. But for every one person that might be making good decisions, I think there's hundreds or thousands of people who are just getting decimated, destroyed. Yeah,
so it's all done. We're done. No,
Yeah.
I think culture can be influenced. I mean,
can it? How do you influence people towards what's difficult, though? I think that's the question.
Well, what's the greatest pleasure? The greatest pleasure actually comes from love. And what motivates me to do something that's difficult? Doing it for someone I love, doing it with someone I love. If you came alongside me and said, hey, let's do this difficult thing together, I'm motivated to do that. If I had to sacrifice for someone that I am caring for, I'm motivated to do that. So, yeah, I think it's possible.
All right, we're on the sympathy of friends. One of the things he says, Aquinas, in this point is that when you see somebody's concern for you, you feel better, you feel pleasure. If I share with you what I'm going through and I see your love for me, that says something about me, that I'm worth listening to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that I'm worth loving, worth supporting, worth sharing the sorrow, because it costs somebody to actually have sympathy or to really feel what someone is going through, to take the time to listen. If you think of going to a hospital room and sitting beside somebody's bed who is sick, going through procedures, doesn't know what's wrong, there's some anxiety, heightened mood there. There's some fear that's coming out. There's some sadness over things that are already lost, and maybe some movements to despair that it'll never get better. And that's really heavy. And it's like, I don't want to be anywhere near that. But I love you, and I'm going to come near that for you, and I'm going to receive that and hold that from you. I'm not going to shame you by trying to fix it. Oh, just do this, or I'm just going to receive it from you, first of all, to know that we're in it together. That's a real sacrifice, and that's a real gift to somebody. And so it's really saying in a very concrete way, not just in words like GPT can do, but in a real concrete way, I love you, I'm with you.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think I've experienced this a lot. When I might be in pain or someone else might be in pain, people want to not enter into it. They're like, you'll be all right. Like, everything happens for a reason. Or these trite lines, they're almost like shields. Like, don't get your pain on me.
Yeah, and in psychology, they call that bypassing.
Okay.
And when we use spiritual motivations for it, we call it spiritual bypassing.
So give me some examples for that.
Just offer it up would be a form of spiritual bypassing. Maybe somebody has just betrayed you and you're suffering from that. You just need to forgive them. Just forgive them. So that's a form of spiritual bypassing.
Why do we do that? Why do we try to get people to bypass things?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't want to enter into it. I don't want to feel it. It's an inconvenience to me. You're not worth it to me. It's not worth suffering to me. Sometimes it hits my own stuff if I feel a sense of responsibility, and it's somehow my responsibility to make it better, and I don't know how, then I'll cover up my own inadequacy or insecurity by coming up with some pious platitude to
people will say,
throw your way.
Oh, he's in a better place. When your dad died, you're like, why would you do that? Why? It's offensive.
Yeah,
and we all kind of get that when people say that without even asking how we are. They don't even care how we are. How we are would be a burden to them.
Yeah, that's right. A little clip that I use in my spiritual direction classes teaching about listening and empathy is from Brené Brown. If you look at Brené Brown on empathy, and she says, empathy is this sacred place, like you're going down into the hole with someone and you're just with them in it. Sympathy, so I don't know that I agree with the terms, but anyway, for the sake of repeating her categorization, she says sympathy is like sticking your head down the hole and going like, how is it down there? Yeah?
Yeah.
It'll get better. Want a sandwich? You lost your baby. At least you can get pregnant. Your son is failing school. Well, at least your daughter's doing well. And that little term, at least, is often trying to put a silver lining on things.
Wow.
Again, rather than entering into the pain. And then she says it very beautifully. What makes things better is not an answer, it's a connection. Just being with someone in it. I don't know what to say to you right now, but I'm just so glad you shared it with me. I'm grateful to be in this with you.
That's why it's said that people who are in great pain, who have experienced great evil, don't in that moment need Christian apologetics. They need a Christian to suffer with them, to be compassionate with them. They need Christ.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Our Lady didn't stand at the foot of the cross theologizing. Well, it's actually better that he's going through this because it's going to be the salvation of the human race. And so we just have to wait it out until it's done and he's risen from the dead and then it'll just be fine.
What would that have said about Mary's relationship with herself if we don't want to come close to blasphemy, but I mean, what would that say about someone who was doing something like that?
Yeah.
That they're just not in touch with...
Well, we see that the perfection is not in coming up with the answer. The perfection is being able to enter into the compassion. So Our Lady demonstrates for us what the path is towards that perfection of love. Again, not that the answers don't matter, and thank God for good theologians who can think through things, but that's not the most important thing. The foundational thing is the bond in love. And it's very true. So again, I'm going to borrow from Conrad Bars a little bit, but we do move into our heads to protect ourselves from what we're not able to hold, the pain that we're not able to enter into. And so we can dissociate and theologizing and intellectualizing, rationalizing, being up in our heads, to say it colloquially, is a way of dissociating from the pain. So, yeah, Our Lady would have not been able to enter into the pain of that reality and would have been escaping from it in a certain way. The apostles escaped in their own way. They just couldn't go there. They didn't go to the cross. Who knows? Maybe Peter was theologizing with, James somewhere else, trying to make sense out of this thing, rather than being able to just be present to it and suffer it. And by that bond of suffering, to be brought through it into the new life of resurrection.
That makes me think of when someone in the family dies. It's easier perhaps for some people to just busy themselves with the details, to be a genuine help to those around them and to the people who are grieving, rather than to enter into it.
Yeah. And going back to our first remedy for sorrow, there's a certain pleasure in carrying out the details.
Yeah.
And that can be a helpful breather, get a little bit of breathing room from the sorrow, and then to be able to enter into it. We just can't stay at that distance. We can't stay dissociated. We can't keep ourselves removed from it. Again, I think it's important to be gentle with ourselves in terms of how much we can handle and not shame ourselves. You ought to be able to enter into it. You ought to be, okay. If you can't, that's fine. Recognize it. Don't shame and hurt the other person in the process, and take the space that you need, but then get the help to be able to enter into it.
Friendships feel like a precarious thing today, to your point about society being sifted like wheat, where we're becoming increasingly isolated. Do you see that, like in your in your spiritual direction? Do you find there's a lot of people who don't seem to have many good friends? And do people know how to build friendships? And what's the reason if they aren't? Is it that people move so frequently? Is it that they're engaged in their devices and so don't have time for actual relationships? Of course, there's this term called ghosting, where we just sort of back away from people entirely. Where's this coming from?
I think the capacity, what did you call the Japan thing?
Hikikomori.
Hikikomori.
You'll have to look this up.
Yeah. I've mused a number of times that that's possible today in a way it's never been possible in history. That the ability to totally isolate because of the capacity to order everything online and to have everything you need coming into you from the outside. And so I think that's part of what exacerbates the challenge around friendships, is it is possible to ghost in a way that was maybe a degree less possible, because not only did we choose each other, we also needed each other. And so it kind of held us in relationship a bit more. And then even around commitments, there was a certain and sometimes unhealthy pressure to stay in relationships that were unhealthy, in fact. But today it's just much more acceptable to end marriages, to leave priesthood, to walk away from jobs, to transfer the kind of mobility, which is not only physical, but also sort of emotional and personal, is much more societally acceptable. In a way, again, there's some benefits to that, to get out of harmful situations, but also there can be some real deficiencies in enabling some bad behavior.
Aristotle famously has these different levels of friendship, all of which are good but are different, one of them being a sort of transactional, maybe not that term, maybe that term's unhelpful, but usefulness, friendship of usefulness. Do you think it's because we require these less and less that those friendships don't ever begin to then develop into a virtuous friendship?
That's a nice insight. Yeah.
Like no one's a friend overnight.
Sure, that's right.
It takes experience, it takes trust.
Sacrifice, commitment, perseverance.
All right, here it is. Hikikomori is a severe, protracted form of social withdrawal, most often associated with Japan, but now recognized globally, where individuals isolate themselves in their homes for at least 6 months, refusing to attend work or school, limiting social contact primarily to their family. This phenomenon is not typically a distinct illness, but a state of social isolation that can stem from factors like intense social pressure, bullying, or a breakdown in family communication, and may co-occur with underlying mental health issues. But I was reading a story about someone who's like, I think 50 years. Yeah, isn't that bananas?
Yeah, it would have been a lot harder 50 years ago, for sure. It's a lot easier to pull that off now.
Right. Yeah, I think it means pulling inward, being confined. Yeah.
And again, I want to touch all of those things with a lot of reverence, because we do that without thinking about it, and it's not helpful to further shame people who have that, as for mental health reasons, and there's pain that's being avoided. And but then the challenge is on the one who has enough freedom, is on the verge of deciding, am I going to isolate more, or am I going to engage? And can answer, can actually choose to engage, repair, work through problems, confront someone. Let me give a gentle nudge that way. It's also a challenge for those who can reach out. Do we even notice the person is missing? Do we go out of our way to keep track of somebody who might be getting isolated, who's suffered in a significant way and might need the human supports that are there?
I know for me as a father with children, sometimes I hear about that and I think, that sounds lovely. I would love that. I'd prove everybody wrong. I could do this and be happy. But what happens to me is when my wife leaves, let's say, to her parents, or she goes somewhere with the children for like a night or 2 or 3, I find the first night, I'm actually loving it. Like, as someone who's introverted, I actually really enjoy being alone in my house, doing my thing, love it. But by day 3 or 4, I don't like it at all. So I just say that because there's bound to be like a mother of small children being like, oh, how do you pay to become one of these?
Well, I think it's a little bit like hunger. When we're hungry, we think, I could just eat constantly for days. And then we have, a full meal and we think, I don't want to eat anymore.
Yeah. Or when you're exhausted, you think, I could sleep for a day. But sometimes like you get 20 minutes in, you're like, I'm good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Friendships.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how these things develop in the modern world, especially with everyone moving. I grew up in a small country town in South Australia. Everyone else did. There was very few people that moved into town. Like if they did, it was a novelty. At least people who then had children who went to my school. Do you know what I mean? Like that was a novelty. We all kind of grew up together, and it's funny how quickly maybe in America that's not a thing. Even back then it probably wasn't a thing. But for us, your aunts and uncles and grandparents, they all lived in the same little town.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really, look at me. I abandoned everybody and moved here, and we're not even near my wife's family. So I'm not making a judgment on it. I'm just, that's a really, and then you even there's this weird phenomenon now where you call close friends auntie and uncle.
Right.
Which I don't like. I don't like using words I don't like abusing words like that. Like, well, this is auntie so-and-so because they're close. And that's fine. It's innocent enough. But that's interesting that we would start to do that.
Yeah, when that's expansive, it can be a beautiful thing in the sense that we have more aunts and more uncles and more of these kinds of close relationships, which is acknowledging how close someone is to the family. I think there can be something beautiful there. When it's a kind of substitute, I cut off my physical aunt and uncle and I replace them with, my chosen this person or that person. Again, I can imagine some reasons for that. But I think surrounding ourselves. One of the beautiful things about family is and neighborhoods is that it challenges us to be around people that at least at first we don't like to be around, or at certain points we don't like to be around. In the family, you may have people all across the political spectrum, and it teaches you, if you're a Republican, how to be with Democrats and not kill each other, to actually listen to each other and perhaps have some positive developments. That's the kind of thing, Chesterton had with his main interlocutor. Who
I forget the name, but he mentions him in Orthodoxy and other books, And
then they go out for a beer together.
Bernard Shaw, was that it? Bernard Shaw.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Yeah,
I
they
just
went
put on
out.
my American accent. But you were looking at me strange. Sure.
Sure. It's like, what is that? Yeah, so they could go out for a beer together after, Chesterton just decimated him in one of his books. There was a way of coexisting, of not reducing someone to one aspect or one disagreeable portion of themselves, or, we learn greater sensitivity, and we learn how to commit to relationships that are hard.
Yeah.
And
How do we learn to do that again?
yeah, it's
Because
a good
at
question.
one point it was necessary. Now it isn't.
That's right.
Like, it was necessary in the sense, you live in a small town with somebody,
Yeah.
you're going to have to figure out how to at least be in the same space, as you say, without cursing each other out. Because you won't be able to, a town won't function, you won't function unless you figure out how to do that. But now that everything feels so fluid, people leave towns for another town, people have what they call starter houses, and they keep moving from one house to another house. So you can't trust that people who live in your neighborhood are going to be there. And then maybe you get enough money that, well, you're never satisfied anyway, and you keep buying bigger and better houses, so no one's sticking around, and there's no towns anymore where people walk.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be too depressing. I'm being a bit depressing here, but it's kind of true, because
Yeah.
you go to these small towns in Europe and they were built for feet.
Right.
So everyone just lived in the same place, and now we build towns for cars. Jacksonville, I think, is the second largest city in America. Or maybe the largest city in America. I think somewhere in Alaska is probably the first, but continental USA is the first or second.
And you mean largest geographically?
Geographically.
Interesting.
What I mean is that they say it takes an hour to get to Jacksonville from Jacksonville.
Oh, wow.
And how do you have community in a place like that?
Yeah.
It's almost like these structures of sin that we've created, and maybe not even sin, I don't know if that's too strong of a word, but the automobile, like what that has done and what we're maybe learning that it's done.
Yeah. Of course, it can bridge distances, but it can also create them.
Seems like it's done way, way more bad than good.
Yeah. Again, to pose a counter argument.
Yeah.
You talked about my 100 spiritual children. That wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
I have a lot of relationships, a lot of connections. You're away from your wife's family, but you can drive to them. Mm-hmm. So it can create connections. I mean, well, I came down here from Pennsylvania, so, would be hours in the car. It would be impossible to ever do by foot, reasonably speaking. I'm going to make this trip once a year or something, and take me half the year to get here. So it's made connections, more connections possible. But again, I think that
But those connections are more tenuous. Like you could have said, I'm not coming because something came up, or you could say to one of your spiritual children, hey, this isn't working. They could say the same to you.
Yeah, that's right. So it puts more pressure on our freedom to not ghost people, to not cancel people, to not surround ourselves only by like-minded people. It puts more of a pressure on us to use our freedom well. And this is where the gospel should help us, right? I mean, Jesus commanded us to love one another as he loves us.
Wow.
He didn't say only the people you like, only the people that are useful, to love everyone as he loves us. That's holiness. That's what we're aiming at.
Yeah.
And so in some sense, as Christians, we should say, yeah, I hate all of this technology because it makes it possible for me to actually be in contact with so many people that I can't possibly hope to love as well as I'm really commanded to love.
Yeah.
But let's get going and do our best to extend that love that he has given to us.
Yeah, the other downside of technology is people can't tell the difference between a friend and an acquaintance or something, because I'm sure you have this too. I certainly do, where people reach out to you because it's so easy to reach out to you. I mean, they could DM you, email you, find your number online and text you, and then you have to somehow learn, how do we distinguish between who's my friend who has a sort of demand on my time, and my family, my wife first, children, close friends, and then who isn't that? And it kind of blurs the lines people reach out to you expecting a response, text you, see that you've seen their text, get offended when they don't hear back, text you as if they've just spoken to you in the same room as you. It blurs the water. It muddies the waters.
Yeah.
It's not even, it's like the technology did that. It's not like the person's irrational for seeing that you saw their text message and didn't respond and felt hurt. That's not necessarily irrational, but the technology has made it that way. So then how do we even understand what a friend is now? If a friend can be someone who knows me online or follows me on Instagram and we've had a couple of exchanges, you know? That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, what you just described is always a cause of such deep pain for me because whether it's speaking in a place where there are, hundreds or thousands of people, I would love to meet every one of those people. And the way that I'm often blessed to meet people is on the level of interiority where people open their hearts and become vulnerable. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. When we actually connect at that level, a lot of the other external things, which can be points of disagreement and dislike and things like that, often fall away when we really get the chance to see the person. And I love people when I get to see their hearts that way. And people reach out to me, as I know they do to you, and share their heart over email or something like that. And I'm always in agony. I can't possibly give the loving response fully to each one of them that I would want to. And so that has to turn into prayer and a certain surrender. But the technology has made all of that possible, has increased our sorrow in some way, although sometimes our joy. I know you got feedback on one of your listeners in Germany. What a beautiful experience. Or somebody in Iceland who's able to find hope because they can connect through a podcast. And there are those sweet moments, but then also the agony of not being able to fully respond like we would want to.
It's almost like, I know that was it John Paul II who put an emphasis on human information within seminary formation?
That's right, yeah.
How important is it, do you find, you teach seminarians, correct? That people have to be taught how to have friends again? Or is that too far?
Yeah, I think, trying to think if I've actually...
It's almost like dating, right? Like dating, you may not have had to teach people how to date 100 years ago. There may have been these like standards that made sense to us as a community, as a culture. Whereas today, it feels like we have to teach men, here's how you should treat a woman, or women, how you should treat a man. And I wonder if we're there, not just with dating, but with friendships. Like, how do you have a friend?
Yeah. That's a great question. I haven't felt that was the case as much. I guess the men that I work with seem, I suppose there's some fringy things of people that need to be helped as certain conflicts arise. Seminary formation, we live together. And so some of these, it's meant to foster a little bit of the kinds of tension, actually to overcome exactly the problems we're talking about. When you live with the same men for 4, 6, 8 years, all the stuff comes out. And then the formators hopefully are formed well enough to be able to help work through the repair that's necessary, the commitment that's necessary, the forgiveness that's necessary. And hopefully we as priests become real experts in humanity, in part because of that seminary formation. But really that has to be grounded in the family. There's some real deficits that can be challenging to overcome. But I guess I feel like, now maybe if I think about the college students, I see that a little bit more immediately. I'm also situated, St. Vincent College is all one campus with the seminary, the monastery, the parish. And with the college students, maybe the sort of connecting over, I don't know, superficial activities, connecting over drinking or just talking at superficial levels, and then isolating into certain kinds of tribal things that are not dying to themselves to get to know somebody who's a little less comfortable immediately. I suppose I see maybe at those younger ages.
People are talking a lot more about social awkwardness these days than they used to.
Yeah, for sure.
I wonder, does that have to do with a rise in certain things like autism? Is it that combined with us not engaging with humans and looking them in the eye?
Truthfully is a groundbreaking Catholic AI app built to help you know, live, and defend the Catholic faith with clarity and confidence. Whether you're navigating a tough conversation, deepening your understanding, or looking for daily spiritual guidance, Truthfully is your companion on the journey. It's like if ChatGPT went through OCIA, got baptized, and made it its mission to proclaim the truth of the Catholic Church. But Truthfully is more than just a Q&A tool. It's formation in your pocket. Take audio courses on topics like the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Eucharist, Purgatory, and why the Catholic Church is the one founded by Jesus Christ. Each course is designed to be accessible, engaging, and deeply rooted in the teachings of the Church. You'll also receive daily audio reflections, short, powerful meditations to help you grow in prayer and stay grounded in your spiritual life. Already downloaded by thousands of people worldwide, Truthfully is transforming the way we learn, share, and live our faith. One question, one course, and one prayer at a time. Start your 7-day free trial today. Download Truthfully on the App Store.
Yeah,
Do you find that in seminary? Do most of the fellows who show up, do you have to turn away a lot more than you may have once done because of this?
So we're not as much the entrance happens at the diocesan level, and then we take their students. Obviously, we give evaluations. For the most part, we've been able to form the men that have been sent to us. I think, and if I can brag, our seminary has the highest retention rate, I think, of any seminary in the country around priests being ordained and remaining in priestly ministry. So in any event, I think there's been a real capacity to form men. They say there's a rise in autism. I don't understand all the factors in that, if that's purely biological or if that's developmental as well at early ages or how that works. But that is some of that social awkwardness. Yeah, some of those things need to be taught for sure. And we do a little more of that with some men than with other men in seminary formation, helping them, giving that clear feedback, because that's also like they need to be told, like your children need to be told. Jordan Peterson has some, nice teaching on these things. Like before the age of 4, you need to make your children able to interact socially, because if they get past the age of 4 and they are irritating to others, that will lead to the successive isolation that becomes super problematic. And so
that's along the lines of his, don't let your children do things that make you hate them.
That's right, yeah.
You could say something similar, don't do things that would make reasonable people hate your children.
Right. That's right.
That is, if you can help it. I mean, that's a really good gift to your children. One of the things I've often said to my children when they'll go over to a friend's house, and the friend's house, I trust them, I love them, and I'll say, like, be good because you want them to invite you back.
Nice.
Which kind of is, I don't know how that's received, but you need to know it. And I'll say, hey, that friend of yours just came over. Did you see how he was well spoken? See how he said thank you and please, and he was kind to your siblings? I'm way more willing to have him back because he was like that. So you should be like that when you go to their house. It sounds kind of horrible to say to someone, be nice so people will like you, but it's true.
Well, it's one measure, right? So we don't, people would talk about the danger of people pleasing.
Yep. Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So that's a kind of fawn response, compliance, or a trauma response, fawning or compliance as a way of just making things good that aren't good so that I don't agitate and intensify a threat from someone else that I'm perceiving. But on the other hand, there is a measure around how acceptable am I and is my behavior based on how people are responding to it. So I need to be able to calibrate that a little bit in order to engage. Yeah.
All right, so number 4 is contemplation of the truth. That's the 4th remedy for sorrow Aquinas gives. I remember somebody saying, it may have been Chesterton, he's the kind of repository of unattributed quotes. Someone said something that horses chew contentedly in the meadows while men smoke discontentedly in the bars. It's good, isn't it? So in other words, you satisfy a dumb animal's needs and it goes to sleep. You satisfy man's natural needs for food and sex and sleep. He asks questions.
Yeah.
This
that's
idea
interesting.
that Greek philosophy arose when it did because of relative stability and peace, or significant stability and peace, that then caused people to ask questions about the nature of the world and truth and language and things like this, which is really interesting. Like, why aren't you just satisfied
Right.
to eat, busy yourself about the reproduction of the species, have a good nap? We're not. We want more. And that's to get to this point of we were made to contemplate the truth, which is why I guess it's so pleasurable to us. But what's your take on this as a remedy for sorrow?
That's interesting. Do they ever call man like Homo philosophicus or something?
I don't know, but I like it.
Yeah. We're sort of inquisitive, quizzical by nature, always seeking to penetrate reality, to grasp more deeply the truth. Yeah. Do you happen to know, does St. Thomas mean contemplation in a...
I don't know.
In a prayerful way? Yeah, that's interesting. That word contemplation gets so overloaded in the realm of spiritual theology. St. Ignatius means something quite different as a technical word than St. Teresa of Avila would mean, than St. Francis de Sales would mean, than the Catechism means. So that word gets so overloaded. I don't want to say overused, overloaded just in having a variety of meanings. And I don't know Thomas well enough to know how he means that, but certainly, especially as insofar as the truth is a person, contemplation of the truth would really be a connection with Christ.
I'm looking up his exact words right now. I don't understand how the term is used, but I want to kind of get the context. So he says, I answer that the greatest of all pleasures consists in the contemplation of truth. Now, every pleasure assuages pain, as stated above. Hence, the contemplation of truth assuages pain or sorrow. And the more so, the more perfectly one is a lover of wisdom. And therefore, in the midst of tribulations, men rejoice in the contemplation of divine things and of future happiness. According to James 1:2, my brethren, count it all joy when you shall fall into diverse temptations, and what is more, even in the midst of bodily tortures. This joy is found, as the martyr, how do I say that? Tuberculus?
I think.
When he was walking barefoot on the burning coals, says, methinks I walk on roses in the name of Jesus Christ. I don't know if that sheds
there
any
seems
light.
to be a little bit of a range of things in that so he talks about being a lover of wisdom, which is, of course, a philosopher, right?
Yeah.
And then the contemplation of divine things and of future happiness, that seems to raise it above, because one could say a scientist is contemplating truth, right?
Yeah.
He's reflecting on the nature of things. Why is this working in the way that it is? And there's a certain satisfaction about uncovering the laws of the universe and the movements of the planets, or the neurobiology that we've been talking about a bit throughout our time together. There's a beauty in discovering those elements of truth. But then, of course, the higher truths are those that are pointing to God, to divine things, of future happiness with a capital H. And so the things of heaven that are beyond what we're even currently capable of seeing. But I always like to point out that although our sight is limited at faith, our hearts, our love pierces the veil. We're able to love now in the way that we will love in heaven. We're not able to see now in the way that we will see in heaven. The beatific vision is a real transformation of our current reality. But our love will be expanded, but it's the same love. And so there's a way that love goes beyond what can be seen. That's one of the reasons for the dark night, for example, is that we have to let go of what we can see in order to pierce beyond that through love. But contemplating insofar as we're able to contemplate, and I think, very much what we're doing, and probably the reason a lot of people watch Pints with Aquinas and a whole variety of other things, is because there's something really satisfying about understanding what's happening.
Yeah.
And as much as we said a little bit earlier, you don't want to just come up with theological reasons for suffering when somebody is suffering. Well, you do also want to come up with theological reasons for suffering. When someone is suffering, there is a question that emerges. There is a desire to understand, why is this happening? What does this mean? What is this all about? And being able to connect about that and understand to a certain degree. We don't fully understand. Again, a lot of things are held behind the mystery of faith, about the veil of faith. But insofar as we're able to make some sense out of it, it's a great consolation.
You know, at the beginning of this interview, you spoke about how this maybe disparity between the pain I'm feeling and the pleasure I seek to satisfy the pain. I think you said, you know, if my mother has died, then a Reese's peanut butter cup is somehow disproportionate. And that's sort of what he addresses here in the third objection, right? So the third objection says, the remedy for an ailment should be applied to the part which ails. But contemplation of truth is in the intellect. Therefore, it does not assuage bodily pain because that is in the senses. Aquinas answers, in the powers of the soul, there is an overflow from the higher to the lower powers. And accordingly, the pleasure of contemplation, which is in the higher part, overflows so as to mitigate even that pain which is in the senses. Isn't that beautiful?
It's really beautiful.
Because it feels like the opposite could be said as well. Like the level of pain of having your mother die is so much greater than the Reese's peanut butter cup that it sort of overflows and swamps the pleasure of the peanut butter cup. But I could see the opposite happening as well, whereas if I'm contemplating heavenly glory and I truly believe that it exists and that I will experience it soon, then that overflows onto lesser pains.
Yeah, I think the fundamental principle for Viktor Frankl's logotherapy is that man can endure with a sufficient why, man can endure any how. And so having an adequate meaning can help us to endure suffering. So Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps said people died before they died. They died when they lost a reason to live, not when they were overcome by pain or suffering so much as when they lost a reason to endure that pain. So it's a little bit related, that higher meaning, that higher value of contemplating what my life is for and where I'm going. You know, you can see this, obviously the martyrs are empowered by a supernatural grace as well, but I was just learning about one of the martyrs of La Florida, Antonio Enijas, who, as he was being burned alive while crucified, was preaching to the people who were present, to the natives who were present in their own language, and then even to his persecutors who were present in their own language, begging them to repent, to convert, that their souls won't be lost for what they're doing. And so that higher purpose seems to have elevated him above the obviously horrible physical pain, not to mention all of the emotional pain of the kinds of rejection, exclusion, the ending of his life, all of the questions that naturally emerge. But
Yeah. All right. Anything else to say on that? Contemplate truth.
Well, and I think to...
You know, you might want to speak to this, to cut you off right after I ask you a question. Sorry. You've talked about how important narrative is and relationship.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to talk about that some more. But it seems to me that when we contemplate the truth, we're seeking a narrative.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what then makes sense of our suffering. So when we kind of think about God's existence, or we read the Catechism or St. Thomas Aquinas or the problem of evil, it sort of situates us in rationality and it makes us feel less chaotic.
Yeah. No, there's something really beautiful there. So truth is the fullness of reality. And this bad thing happened to me is a narrowing of reality. I just got sick randomly. That's a narrowing of reality. It's not the fullness of reality. There is a whole succession of causes and effects. There's a succession of even intentionality. And then there's a framework of divine intentionality. And as we open to a fuller reality, we never fully get there because, again, some of it is veiled. We don't see as God sees, not in this life, not fully. But we get glimpses of it And as we allow reality to expand, those sorts of things are a part of it. There's a relationality. There's more than just a number of separated monads bouncing off of each other, having things happen to them. There's the intentionality of relationships. There's the spiritual bond of relationships. And so my sickness is not just an unfortunate incident. Somebody takes care of me. It affects people around me. I'm supported by somebody who sympathizes with me and shows their love for me that I didn't get before I was sick. So there's a whole relational realm that's a part of the fullness of reality. And then there's also a whole narrative realm. So when John's gospel says, through him, the Logos, all things were made. So in the beginning, there was a divine logic, a Logos, a meaning. And through that logic, through that meaning, all things were made. All of creation is meant to glorify God. And everything is made as to be a part of that eternal embrace between the Father and the Son, and to be part of the Son's love song to the Father and his way of honoring him for all of his perfections. And so everything has that meaning, from a little lizard to a rock everything is part of giving glory to God, but human beings in a preeminent way. So anyway, there's a whole narrative around the things that are unfolding, which are much richer than we're living in very reduced experiences of reality, perceptions of reality all the time. And the more that we can expand that to a fuller perspective, the richer it is that we're living in. So, to be able to get a glimpse of, well, even like a Viktor Frankl, to say, in some way, and this is what God is always doing, and we have to be a little careful how we express it, but in some way, Viktor Frankl's life was improved by being I think he was in Auschwitz, in a concentration camp. In some way, his life was even richer having gone through that concentration camp than it would have been if he had never gone through the concentration camp. So we have to be careful not to say God sends people into concentration camps in order to enrich their lives.
Yeah.
He allows the consequences of our free choice, sin and evil, but he never allows anything which he cannot bring forth a greater good from. And so no matter what we've done or what's been done to us, we can always say from this moment in time, in some mysterious way that I may not fully know until heaven, my life is actually going to be better because of this bad thing that I'm in the middle of. And that hope can really be a remedy for sorrow.
Yeah.
To be able to contemplate that truth.
Yep. Well, the final one, which is everybody's favorite one, is sleep and baths. So he's going to say that sleep and baths and such remedies and such like remedies. Yeah. So he's not limiting it to these two activities, but just his point seems to be that we are body-soul composites, each being equally a part of who we are. We don't have a body, we are a body. And so what you do to the body affects you because your body is you. Yeah, something like that. And so if I, that's to say my material self, is weary, if I'm falling into any kind of heresy here, you'll correct me.
You're doing great.
If I fall into any sort of exhaustion, then whatever revives my material self revives me because I am my material self, something like that.
Yeah, it seems to me kind of a corollary of the first one, that pleasure is a remedy for it. And as he points out, any pleasure is a remedy. And all the ways that we discussed in part, temporarily perhaps, but is a remedy for sorrow. There's something about, and I wonder if we can reflect on what it is about baths and sleep. But there is something that's kind of whole about those things. My whole body is cleansed. My whole body goes unconscious and is restored by sleep.
Think of a good massage. Or laying at a beach in the sun.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I read his main response?
Yeah.
It's quite short but potent. He says, sorrow by reason of its specific nature is repugnant to the vital movement of the body And consequently, whatever restores the bodily nature to its due state of vital movement is opposed to sorrow and assuages it. Moreover, such remedies, from the very fact that they bring nature back to its normal state, are causes of pleasure. For this is precisely in what pleasure consists, as stated above.
Yeah, it's a powerful recognition, as you even emphasized in reading. Sorrow, by reason of its specific nature, is repugnant to the vital movement of the body.
I mean, you think about the person who becomes so depressed they can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
What has sorrow done to them that they don't want to move? Their body doesn't have the energy to move.
Yeah, I mean, just in reading that, it brings up so much compassion in my own heart for, it's one of those, it becomes one of those negative feedback loops. It's like sorrow weighs me down, and then being weighed down, my whole body is affected by that. I feel the weight of sorrow. There's an oppressive quality to it. And it makes me not want to get out of bed, and in some way less and less capable. And the more I stay in bed, the more limited I become by that sorrow. Weighed down by it, it becomes this negative feedback loop. Makes me think also of, Jordan Peterson's simple advice, right? Make your bed. Do something, clean your room. Just do something to start to animate. Take up as heavy a burden as you're able to carry at this moment, and carry that through. It's really, I suppose, the first remedy of some kind of pleasure. It feels good to have accomplished something even as simple as making your bed. It's within reach. It's possible to accomplish. Cleaning your room, it's within reach. You might, for all kinds of reasons, be afraid to go out of your room, but then just clean what's there, organize what's there, make something beautiful. It can be a starting point to give us a little bit of momentum, start us moving forward. So I think likewise, if you can at least get out of bed and take a shower, just clean, and there's something refreshing about that. Or likewise, don't be afraid to take a nap. Maybe you're weighed down. I can, to share a little bit personally, I mean, I certainly have had many experiences where for different reasons, I'm going through something, I'm dealing with some conflict, I'm overwhelmed by something I don't know how to solve, interpersonal situation, a pastoral situation, and it just weighs me down, and I just want to turn off, and I'll curl up and take a nap and just allow myself to kind of press in. I remember the first time I became aware of this, it was when it just maybe my second year of priestly ministry, and I was having a lot of conflicts in the ministry. I was also getting a doctorate in computer science, and I was, I just had a number of things, and there was a part of me that wanted to stay up. I didn't want to collapse. I wanted to fight against it. And then eventually I just had a sense no, just settle into it, fall into it. And as I was doing that, I had a real sense of just sort of collapsing in the arms of Jesus, letting Our Lady hold me, and slipping off into a nap. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get up in the morning, and just thought, okay, rather than fighting this, doing violence to myself, forcing myself to get out of bed, which I've done on other occasions, and it can have its own value. But in this case, I just felt I just need to really settle into it. Let myself be held, just have some sadness, feel it. It's a little bit like the tears, express it. And then pressing down farther into it, I received some love there, and then was able to kind of get up and keep going. But yeah, I think giving ourselves a break, being gentle with ourselves, there can be a real remedy to that.
And of course, too, the reason we might feel sorrow isn't because of any emotional or psychological difficulties. It could simply be that we are run down.
That's right.
You came and visited me, spent a few nights at our house, thank you. And I felt pretty bad that I was just pretty stressed out, actually. I've had a busy couple of weeks, and I think my body was like, okay, time out. And so I was getting sick. I got this thing on my eye that started appearing. What's that called? Sty.
Yeah.
Sty on my eye. And I was like, I need to rest. And just to have the freedom to do that was really good. And I think that that is sort of what he's talking about, just trying to restore nature. Yeah.
And you experience that.
And I felt better. And that's the thing. So it's unlike the example you gave, which was excellent, that if you're sorrowful, to allow yourself to rest. But for me, it was like I was exhausted. It wasn't, maybe it was stress, but I didn't feel any kind of sorrow, I don't think. But my body was just run down, and I needed to allow my body, allow yourself to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stress that you talked about, it's a kind of sorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
And interestingly, in some way, it was your body that alerted you to the fact that you were carrying sorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Stress, sorrow.
Yep.
Anyway, there's a little mixture there.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to listen to our bodies.
It's important to listen to our bodies. Yeah. Again, I think that's one of these things that's emerged, and you and I were having the discussion anyway a couple of days ago of like, is everything becoming too psychologized? Trauma? Is there a popular pushback against this? And, this message to be gentle with ourselves and take care of our bodies and listen to our bodies. And sometimes those things feel a little overdone, but there's so much truth there. I mean, The Body Keeps the Score is the name of the sort of famous book by Bessel van der Kolk on trauma, and that we do hold a lot of these things in our bodies. And if we allow ourselves, if we pay attention to what's there, our gut, our hearts, our stress, our necks, our heads, we can almost ask the question, like, shoulders, what are you trying to tell me? You're carrying a lot. What are you carrying? We can almost have this kind of inner dialogue with ourselves and our bodies. Because we're not a soul in a body. The body is the expression of the soul. And although there's a little bit of disconnect because ultimately there is a disintegration that will end in death, there's a lot of connect. There's a lot more connect than disconnect. And so, John Paul could say in his theology of the body is the language of the spirit. The body is the expression of our soul. So it's not surprising that it's expressing things that aren't necessarily passing through our conscious thoughts. And then we would have to kind of query it to bring it to conscious awareness. What is this thing that I'm still holding, carrying, that's weighing me down, oppressing, stressing?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how I brought that up the other day about, are we just sort of this sort of like therapeutic culture, and is this somehow toxic? Should we be rejecting this? Because, from one angle, you could say, well, this is this new fad that sort of like entered into popular discourse. And goodness, I don't know if I see that in the saints or the fathers, or at least expressed with the same language. And so therefore, this is novel and to be shunned, possibly. Another way of looking at it, though, is sometimes things have to be emphasized at different times. And we live in a day and age where maybe we're beginning to try to treat the body like a machine. We take our energy drinks, and even the language around energy drinks seems to treat our body like a car. And so maybe what seems to us to be a fad is more just a part of Christianity that has to be emphasized at a given point because of the moment we're in.
I think that's very true. Yeah. And so we have to be careful not to emphasize that and lose other elements. But at the same time, emphasizing it is a real need. I do think there's a lot of disembodiment, even as we were talking about AI and the internet and the kinds of disconnections that are there. Being disconnected from our own bodies is pretty rampant, I think. Sort of using the body, exploiting the body, and
especially as we retreat from manual labor of any degree. I pay a kid to mow my lawn. I make my kids get the mail. Like, what am I doing?
It's good for your kids.
It is good for my kids, and I'm certainly not saying
you don't have a robot mowing your lawn. So.
Yeah, well, that's funny that you say that, because I told my wife today I would get that little robot.
The Roomba.
Yeah. Because ours doesn't work. So I said, don't worry, I'll bring this one home from work. Because I'm not going to do it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so much easier. And I'm not demonizing those things, but it is interesting, the less we need our bodies.
Yeah.
Like, think of a Tesla.
Yeah.
You're no longer required even to drive your own car, to wash your own dishes, to wash your own clothes, to sort of facilitate your own entertainment through your active engagement with it, such as on a piece of paper. Like, just open up your mouth and eyes and we'll just shovel everything in. Do you know?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could see how you could quickly become disengaged from your body, or to think that the body is a sort of annoyance, like those humans we talked about earlier in the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reconnection to our bodies, in the way a bath and a nap can really affect our souls. And I think this, as we've been able to work through this wisdom that's 800 years old, and we've represented it in language that is entirely modern, it shows that some of these modern discoveries, which I think add some a light, they shine a light, they give a little nuance, they give us a different perspective, and yet we see how they're grounded in wisdom that's centuries old and held by one of the greatest doctors of the church. So it's a nice affirmation for what we're working with today, that it's not just the latest fad, that it's not just pop culture, pop psychology, that there is a real grounding in something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he would have said a massage would help. I mean, listen to this. What does he say? So this is him. This is his sed contra, where he's using Augustine talking about baths. Let's see, I'll just read it. He says, Augustine says, I had heard that the bath had its name from the fact of its driving sadness from the mind. And further on he says, I slept and woke up again and found my grief not a little assuaged, and quotes the words from the hymn of Ambrose, in which it is said that sleep restores the tired limbs to labor, refreshes the weary mind, and banishes sorrow. Okay. Then in the respondio down the bottom, the final line there, right? He says, pleasure assuages sorrow, so therefore, he says, sorrow is assuaged by such like bodily remedies. So he's not saying like only sleep and baths do this, and there's no other kind of activity physically that would restore you. So that's really nice. But I mean, I know I'm circling back to something I said earlier, but I really do think that let's say someone's been watching this and they've been feeling really down lately, how would they put these 5 things, just for fun, just for fun, into practice, And I think a big part would be to put the phone and the computer away, because I know this from experience. I could be laying down all day. Not that I do that, but I could. And if I did and just binged things mindlessly, I end up more exhausted. I've been lying down all day and I'm exhausted because my mind is going, mile a minute. Is that the expression?
Yeah.
Sorry. And so I here's my suggestion. You give me yours, Father, afterwards. All right. So here's what you could do. I think get some distance from any kind of screen. Like if you can get 24 hours to 48 hours, I know that sounds like a lot for people, but if you can find a way to do that, like a digital Sabbath, as it were, do that first. Maybe have a hot bath, glass of wine, and a good night's sleep. Please God, you'll have it. And then connect with somebody that you love, not only to share what's been going on in your life, but to receive from them. Because that's actually another thing that kind of distracts you from your own pain, to kind of engage with another person and to hear their own sorrows and joys, kind of takes you out of yourself. Not that we should be caring about other people for our sakes. I don't mean that, but it is a sort of downstream consequence. And then to contemplate the truth. Yeah. Pray the rosary, meditate on the mysteries of the rosary, or to think about the great love and providence of God. Something I try to say to myself, which I don't always succeed in, is that fiat voluntas tua. Throughout the day, when things happen, they either happen because of his perfect or permissive will, and so I can join myself to this unpleasant thing by accepting it, consenting to it, as it were. Not that I have a choice, do you understand? So if my tire bursts on the highway, and I didn't want that to happen, and I didn't try to make that happen, I can, in a way, I can choose it to happen, because I can endure it, but I can go one step further and somehow thank God for it. This happened to me once upon a time, several years ago. Someone took over my Instagram account. I don't know how they did it. but they got into my Instagram account, locked me out of it, and started posting images of Saddam Hussein. I don't understand what was happening, but people were like, what is happening? Like in the comments section, yeah. I eventually got it back. I don't remember how, but I remember when this happened, I chose, by God's grace, to go, praise God. Thank you. Thank you, Lord, that this happened to me. Not because God perfectly willed it or anything like that, but just to sort of accept. That takes a lot of the suffering out too. Anyway, so maybe that's a prescription for what you could do to sort of assuage some sorrow based on Aquinas' 5 suggestions there. What do you think?
I like that. I think if I can just comment on one point that you made in terms of separating from the phone, I think I would find that a little bit less for myself, but I'm a little less involved in, like, I don't have any social media accounts that I pay attention to. I don't scroll a lot of things. So one of the things I heard then was remove yourself from what is a cause of sorrow, perhaps a cause of exhaustion, a cause of stress. We can't always remove ourselves from it, but sometimes we can. And if the phone is a cause of sorrow and distress and it interferes, then set it aside.
Can I interject real quick? I think the reason it needs to be stated, and the reason it's not so obvious, is the phone is a cause for many of exhaustion and sorrow, but at the same time, it's a cause of excitement and anxiety relief. That's what makes this difficult. It's not like it's only a source of anxiety.
Right.
No, it also actually, like you're standing in a coffee line with a bunch of people you don't know, and you feel anxious, maybe. And you pick up your phone, you start scrolling through it. It relieves your anxiety somewhat. Do you see what I mean? That's what's difficult about it. Because in my experience, when I give up the phone for the weekend or for a week or for a month as I used to, there's an immediate sense of anxiety. What if people are texting me? They think I'm ignoring them.
Right.
Well, I forgot I should have done this thing. And so it's not immediately obvious that putting the phone aside will cause a sort of peace. But in my experience, it does with a little time. But I grant your point as well. I don't mean to demonize technology. Perhaps people are using it appropriately, like yourself, in a way that I might not or others may not.
Well, and I'm not trying to undermine that. Just identifying part of and I love what you brought out. It's an immediate source of excitement or relief, but it's a longer term source. It's a little like we were talking about with, whatever unhealthy coping mechanisms, I'll just say it like that, that are, maybe that bowl of ice cream provides immediate relief, but then I feel overweight and that provides more stress and anxiety afterwards. So separating ourselves from causes of stress or anxiety, if we can get a little bit of distance, we should have permission to, it might be a relationship. It might be taking a day off of work. It might be separating ourselves from, some other source of stress in our lives. Getting a little bit of distance from it can be a big help. And then I love what you were saying, being able to embrace a difficult situation. That's kind of that contemplation of truth again, embracing that narrative that's accessible to us through faith, that God has a way of working all things to the good. If this place that I'm in weren't the best place for me to be for my sanctification and salvation, I wouldn't be there. If I can actually embrace that. In some way, it's better for me that the tire blew out. Maybe I'll even find that out. I find out there's an accident that I wasn't a part of because, or those sorts of stories come through. But just to be able to embrace that in faith can be a great relief, rather than fighting against reality, wishing things were not the case that are.
That is the cause of much of my pain.
Yeah.
Is that I fight against my cross.
Yeah.
Who is it who said the cross eagerly borne is like half the weight or something to that effect, right? I mean, Lisieux, Altres, others talk about that, but it's so true. There are things in my life and I hate that they are. I do. I hate that they are the way that they are. And I wish they weren't. And I grieve that they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also know, at least theoretically, that if I would choose my crosses that I haven't chosen, that I have no choice over, but I would choose, that I would be much happier. I love that, fighting against reality.
And, as we've talked about, it hurts. So without any bypassing, without pretending like, oh, I really like the fact that my car, tire blew out and I'm stranded on the side of the road. I'm going to miss my flight and all my plans are just wrecked. I really like that. Like, no, I don't like that. But can I enter into it? Can I feel the pain and then find a way to say, yes, Lord, your will be done. Thank you, Jesus, for this. That's it's advanced spirituality, I have to say. That is not easy by any means. And some of these other remedies can help to take a little bit of the edge off of it so that I can enter into it. Sometimes reaching out to a friend and saying, can you believe my tire just blew out? I'm stranded on the side of the road and I'm going to miss my flight and this is not what I wanted. And just somebody to receive me in that, the sympathy of a friend can settle that.
Yeah.
And then by the time that I'm through that, I say, I think God has something planned. And I can really authentically enter into a story that's much bigger than the little story of what I like or dislike today and whatever difficulty that might cause me.
Thank you. You've written books and stuff. Tell people where they can find them or what you're involved in that you would like them to know about.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm a director of spiritual formation at St. Vincent Seminary, so I'd love for you to pray for our seminarians and the work that we do there for our Benedictines, but also a number of dioceses that we serve. Really, really proud of our community and of our seminary. As I mentioned, really great retention rates, and I think we do a great job with formation. I also direct the academic programs for an Institute for Ministry Formation. We form spiritual directors and catechists. Those programs are all available online. So imf.stvincentseminary.edu, all spelled out. And maybe you'd like to sign up for a class or a program. We offer certificates and master's degrees as well. And hopefully we'll keep growing. I hope that continues to happen. And yeah, I've written, I'm part of an Arch Abbey, of course. I'm a Benedictine from St. Vincent Arch Abbey. And for young men who might be watching and are discerning a vocation, the vocation to the Benedictine life. And then as it's lived out at St. Vincent, we have a college and a seminary, pastoral and missionary apostolates. We're pretty active as far as Benedictine monasteries are concerned.
Aren't you the largest Benedictine monastery in the world?
We are the largest Benedictine monastery in the world.
How many monks do you have?
So about 150 altogether, yeah. And it's a great community. The Lord keeps sending us young men, and so we have old men in their 90s who I love and inspire me and are so faithful in their prayer and their generosity and charity, who have been there for 75 years. And we have 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that entered, 3 months ago. And that whole range of ages is, and demographics and backgrounds. And anyway, it's really a beautiful place that way. So, and then as you mentioned, books. So perhaps my own website, fatherboniface.org, spell out Father, would be a way to see I've written 5 books, 2 together with my spiritual father, Tom Acklin, Father Tom Acklin. And Marian Consecration, a book on St. Joseph, a book on the Mass, and then the kind of 2 really substantial ones, one on spiritual direction and one on personal prayer. And hopefully a few more to come.
You got a few more in the works, or are you currently, you don't have to say what they are, but are you?
Yeah, I'm working on a book on, a handbook on accompaniment. So I think that grace, everything in some sense that we talked about in our time, how to rebuild relationships, how to listen to people without bypassing them, how to offer the genuine care for another that can reduce sorrow and help people to see a bigger picture. And so many of the things we talked about, really getting into what that looks like. I mean, so much of what we discussed here will find its way into that handbook. And then also as the new translation of the Liturgy of the Hours comes out in about 15 months or so, I'm working together with Chris Karstens, who's the editor of Adoremus, and on a book on the Liturgy of the Hours, try to talk about what that is and how to pray it better and hopefully re-inspire or inspire a broader sense of appreciation and prayer and commitment to the Liturgy of the Hours.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.